Hello, everyone. I am super excited to be here on today's Sustainability Talk, where we are actually taking the conversation around energy to a different level. And the topic of today is how to lead global organizations to new level of impact. And I am not alone, as you can see. I am so happy, so delighted to be joined by a very special guest, Julia Armet. So,
Hi.
this, hi, Julia. I'm so happy to have you here.
It's amazing to be tuning in from across the pond. And I feel like that is what we can really talk to today when we are addressing the fact that organizations around the world are shifting in terms of the way they do business. So,
Hmm.
very happy to join you in the conversation today.
Oh, I'm so lucky to have you here, and I just want to introduce you a bit more to our audience. So you, Julia, is the founder of Higher Playbook, people and culture consultancy, who is advancing a more socially conscious workforce. Julia is inspiring the next generation of leaders to do business differently by placing their impact at the heart of their work. I mean, seriously, talking about, resonating big time with me. And I also want to share that I have the pleasure of also doing business with Julia. Julia is a trusted colleague. She's a fellow energy leadership master practitioner. And Julia is also joining me inside organizations who are looking to take ESG and DEI really seriously. I mean, we want to work with companies who are have their skin in the game. So I just want to open up this conversation, Julia. Like, what do you think about how to lead global organizations to new level of impact? What's your take there?
I always come back to communication. And in the study of cross cultural communication, what interests me a lot is what makes us all the same, along with what makes us different. And I feel like so much of the time when it comes to driving social progress, what stands in between us and our goals often has a lot to do with the communication breakdowns. And so when we are looking at creating impact and really rallying people, when we are able to master communication, I think so much more is possible. And the
Mm.
reason why I feel like you and I really connect is we see energy and we see that as a form of communication and a very powerful tool, really, in being able to lead organizations forward as we rally behind the sustainable development goals. And it's
Mm.
been nice to know that as much as we can come to, let's say, strategic ideas as to what organizations need, that it can really be simplified into something as basic as mastering communications.
Yeah, I love that. And this is why very often, when I'm in conversation with organizations, I always ask questions about how do you feel the communication is in your organization, and sometimes even going kind of deeper and ask about what kind of dialogue would you say your organization have? And very often they're like, why are you asking about that? Aren't we going to talk about like diversity, equity, and inclusion? And you start talking about what level of communication we have and the dialogue. So, what is your experience when you're getting into organizations and you're talking about this?
I feel like a lot of the gap area has to do with embodiment. And while so many people can have these policies and really take a stand using, let's say, strategic communications to publicize to their organizations what's happening, the actual work of embodying our values, embodying the ethics that we believe in, that has everything to do with the nonverbal communication and the ways that we are, I think, acting and showing up every day. That is very much rooted in the language of energy. And when
Hmm.
we are looking deeper at the energetics of organizations and putting language to that nonverbal communication that is interfering with the embodiment of values and principles, that's ultimately where I see so many people kind of confronting the gap areas that would otherwise not necessarily be addressed. So I do
Yeah.
believe that right now, the true area of opportunity for so many organizations is embodiment and really being able to take the strong missions and the strong values that they stand for and live and breathe those within their business operations.
Yeah. Don't you find it though that inside organizations, leaders might actually be afraid of stepping into such level of vulnerability because it is being vulnerable to step into this version of communication, and they maybe want to, but they are holding themselves back.
Different rules. I believe that when we look at vulnerability and the idea of vulnerability, doesn't always mean intimate details. It often can just mean transparency and really being able to speak your truth, being able to share emotions, being able to give permission to lead intuitively. The idea of going deeper and the idea of coming into spaces to have conversations that you haven't had before, that's what interests me. And if vulnerable shares, if details about people's personal lives come up, that's powerful in that what it can do is really foster relationships. But
Yeah.
what I do realize is just giving permission to address conversations that have yet to be addressed
Mm.
often just give way to more insights, more innovations, more creativity. So it has
Yeah.
everything to do with being okay to touch on topics that are otherwise not touched on in the workplace. And I feel like that's
Sorry,
where the
I'm just going to
opportunity lies.
interrupt you. You know, this is great because we're running live here. So I just need to talk to my granddaughter a bit. Hello,
Oh,
Mari. I'm on. This is how it is these days. Huh? So you know, I'm here.
hi.
We're doing a live here now. Okay, can you go to Mama and I'll come back to you afterwards? Okay. Nice. Good. Good. Nothing, Mama. Okay. Yes. Beautiful dress. Beautiful dress.
She's
Well, I
so
did.
sweet.
She's so
So
sweet.
sweet.
this, this
She
is
was
the
so
future.
small. I didn't even see her come in. And then all of a sudden she was standing there.
And it was like, okay, well, this is what I love. When we do this, we just do this. And talk about that. When we are leaders, we're seeing all that there's a world operating in a different setting now. So I could easily be a CEO of a big company and having my granddaughter coming in, and we kind of just have to play with the reality of things. And I think that's also where we can create impact. That before I would be like, shh, we have to really like, oh no. But now we have basically changed a bit of the way we show up. So I just thought that was a beautiful, beautiful thing that just happened.
Yeah.
But where were we? You were give me the last sentences that you were mentioning.
I was really just talking about allowing permission to touch on topics that perhaps were otherwise off limits in the workplace.
Yeah.
And even to be able to give permission to just more human ways of operating. If it happens where we're working from home and our grandchild walks in the room, it's one of those things where when we realize that we're all human, that we all have really busy lives, and to be able to have more openness to share how we're feeling, how we're doing, what that does, it's allowing people to really ask for what they need along with speak to their truth and what they desire. And
Mm,
at the foundation of our lives, when we can meet our needs and desires, I find that we can just experience more fulfillment on a daily basis. And
yeah.
when workplaces can really adopt that and really be perceptive to that, I know that a lot more can be possible. It's kind of like opening your eyes wider, opening your ears bigger, whatever it takes to be able to sense is really where the conversations can then emerge.
Yeah.
So I will say that communications is truly what I know is the gateway, and the
Mm.
language of energy as a communication strategy is at the heart of what I know you and I share in common.
Yeah, and I love that. And one of the things that I want kind of this conversation to introduce, the listeners in on is basically the energy levels and why all of these levels are important. And the reason I'm mentioning that is that um, one of the things that leaders also experience, and I have experienced, is loss, and you're grieving, and where we are as human beings in need of a different support than on a regular day. So in my case, where I lost my son, and I shared this openly with people and through social media, because I know as a leader, I'm a leader. I need to show up in order to become a stronger leader, to be a more empathic leader, to support other people. But I have to show up sharing from my side as well in order to be able to understand maybe what is other people going through. And so that is a place where we're not necessarily going into this deep conversation and sharing the deepest emotions, but when we are grieving, either that is through a loss or another situation, to be open and transparent can actually create a far more impactful organization built on empathy and understanding and communication. Because if we cannot communicate the fact that we've stood in a great pain, it's very unlikely that you would think that a leader who's gone through something traumatic, who is not speaking about it, really is carrying a lot of empathy if they can't talk about it, but everybody else is talking about behind their backs about it. So what I'm curious about is, could you explain a bit about the energy levels? We are having 7 levels, so could you just take them, all of us, through it when we're thinking about impact um, organization have in this world?
Yeah, well, with what you were just saying, and really being able to create understanding and really being able to deepen relationships by being able to really identify where you are. And the scale that I'm about to share has everything to do with that. It's really a scale for people to be able to communicate their emotions, communicate what they might be going through and experiencing without going into deep detail, but to be able to really just mark it on the scale and then create ways of really being able to show up, not just for yourself, but also for one another. So, in the application of what I'm going to share right now, just realize it is a tool that really serves the purpose of strengthening relationships along with creating unification amongst groups of people. There are 7 levels of energy, and that can really refer to 7 levels of communication too, given that we're speaking on communication. Level 1 is the heaviest, lowest level of energy, and level 7 is the highest level of energy, which is the lightest level of energy. So the lower the energy level, the heavier, the more denser the energy, and often the harder it is to achieve the goals that you desire. The higher the energy, the more effortless, the easier it is to be able to just create what it is that you wish to create. And that could be for yourself along with for everybody around you. So if we get granular and we start with level 1 and then we go all the way to 7, level 1 is the energy of I lose. Level 1 energy is the energy of feeling at the effect of powerless. It is often that energy of defeat where you procrastinate, you avoid, you feel very stagnant. Now, to influence that energy, it really is about rallying, championing yourself, and often being your own advocate, which will then allow you to rise to level 2 energy. Level 2 energy is the energy of you lose. Now, what's interesting about that sort of fight is if you are fighting against another person, if you are fighting against yourself, if you are fighting against the world, it can often get in the way of relationships and often not be a sustainable energy to come from. And yet, in the short term, if you really are lobbying, advocating, and looking to push yourself forward because you are rising from that space of stuckness, it can give you that immediacy of an energy boost. Now, essentially, when you can realize that it is on you to be responsible for yourself and release whatever it is that is causing tension, you can rise to level 3 energy, which is the energy of I win. And that is typically an energy that is seen across the business world globally. It's the energy that many businesses operate from and potentially perceive themselves operating optimally from. Now, if we
Mm.
are to draw awareness to the reality that I win is very much an individual win, what ends up happening is we can open our eyes wider and recognize, what about you? And when we can say, what about you? And come from that energy of level 4, you win, that's really the servant leadership, the type of leadership that often is where you see leaders coming from. How can I help? How can I support? How can I really show up as the ultimate servant leader? Now, when we come from I win, you win, that is level 5 energy. That is the energy of collaboration. That is the energy that you witness in learning environments. That is the energy that really is where teams that are high potential, teams that are aspirational, and teams that are socially innovative start from. When you're coming from the I win, you win, and the knowingness that we all win or we don't play, that is really where teamwork begins to really happen. And then we elevate into that level 6 energy of we always win, which is when shared experiences, everything that we see in ourselves, we can recognize in one another. We are able to come from the deep vision, the deep knowing, the deep intuitive understanding of the interconnectivity of things. And that energy level is where visionary leaders are able to come from when driving forward these big goals, such as the sustainable development goals, and being able to influence the people within your teams to be able to create together. It is coming from
Mm.
that very high level 6 energy. Ultimately, level 7 energy is what's winning anyway. And that energy level is the space of genius, the space of innovative thinking, the space of abstract concepts being
Mm.
then brought into real life. It's often that
Mm.
space of observation to be able to see the big picture and from there really decide how to lead yourself. So I will say that level 7 is actually calling on all levels below and being able to harness the fullness of our expression to be able to create whatever it is in material form. Now, that scale is just a synopsis of the Energy Leadership Index assessment that is created by Bruce D. Schneider and the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching for anyone interested to learn more about it. Though the reason Rita and I are speaking about it has everything to do with aligning in a shared communication. So
Mm.
if Rita's in Norway and I'm in the United States, when we can take a index like this and we can
Mm.
use it just across different aspects of business and really being able to measure the current state of, let's say, different teams within a company. What ends up happening is we can then meet the team where they are and support that team in taking steps forward both in relational development along with cultural development to really drive forward the mission and goals that our clients really are coming from. And I do think that when it is a matter of aligning a team, it's very powerful to be able to create a shared communication strategy, which really
Mm.
is the Energy Leadership Index.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And it's like, for so a lot of the work that I get to do in the space of ESG and DEI, so DEI meaning diversity, equity, and inclusion, using this NG Leadership Index and assessing people and understand where are they coming from in this organization. Because if you think about it, you talk about level 5, and it's like, uh, kind of we all play, or we all win and we all play, or and if not we don't play. It's this kind of win-win scenario. And when we're thinking about that, when it comes to creating an inclusive environment, it's exactly that. It's like we are here together because we're going to create stuff together. And that's why this tool is just so incredibly powerful when we want to have a data point, in the space of, in particular, DEI. There's like, what data points do we have to show, where we are starting? And when it comes to the NG Leadership Index, we actually get a reference point, a data point. Is there a
Yeah.
lag here now?
What did you say?
Is there a lag in the stream right now?
No, I'm just listening. And what I realize is the current level of inclusion of a company is something that right now, lots of people are curious, how do we measure that? And it's up to leaders to get creative. It's up to practitioners who have unique tools like the Energy Leadership Index to be able to come in and really assess aspects of an organization that traditionally have not been assessed. What's really happening is companies are beginning to go beyond key performance indicators and start to really address key impact indicators. So, if inclusion is one of those, and we then measure where the people are on the scale of 1 to 7, and we see, wow, this team is coming from a 3, then we know there's opportunity in terms of opening up the awareness of a group to consider not just themselves, but one another. And then beyond that, the whole picture, not just stakeholders, not just shareholders, but really looking at the society and the world at large and expanding perceptions of truly what the purpose of an organization is. So when we are
Yeah.
coming from a recognition that across the world, the way we measure success is shifting, what ends up happening is we can then define new metrics, such as a key impact indicator like inclusion, and have that really be something that we are benchmarking throughout just the different initiatives that happen. So if we are running an initiative for DEI and we see that over the course of 6 months, we can move the needle on inclusion, then we can continue to allocate resources accordingly and really invest in the things that really harness the energy of people. And that, I believe, is the true source of sustainability when we are looking at sustainability as something internal to an organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking about, we're talking about creating impact. And one of the things that I really started to see as I work with organizations is that they've started to become far more receptive of what society as a whole wants from them. Whereas before, in particular in the energy industry, they might have been like, yeah, but I don't really know what they're talking about. We cannot do it differently. And as the demand from society is different, we see that companies, it doesn't matter what industry they're in, but if they really want to create impact, stepping into the higher level of energy, which is understanding what the market is asking for, listen to that and see, okay, how can we unite around this at the same time as we're making money, as we are giving, we're talking about double bottom lines, giving back to society. And this is a big shift that I've seen over the last years, is that industries who are not listening to what cultures or social or the world is saying are losing impact. They have zero impact. And again, then through going in and supporting companies of identifying ways of which to elevate them and spending more time in an energetic level where they are expanding, they're curious, as saying, yes, let's go all in, let's figure this out. What is the opportunity here? They are the ones that will really create impact.
I believe that when we can all take those pauses and take a step back and really come from that openness and non-judgment to see the big picture, that's when we can often spot things that we haven't seen before. And so when you are talking about the benefit of organizations coming from higher levels of energy, I do think intentionally creating space to really just observe yourself and be connected to one another, that's a powerful strategy in really being able to shift the energy of a group. And that, I feel, is where productivity can stem from. And that, I feel, is where the really major shifts can happen when we are looking at the way companies operate. Though what I will say is it's very much important that leaders can come from both non-judgment and judgment. So when we take those steps back, come from those higher levels of energies, we can then operate in sprints, and we can come from those lower levels of energy, whether it's 3, whether it's 2, whatever we utilize, those energies are valuable when we are truly in that mastery of knowing when, how, and where to use those energies. So I
Mm.
often say that energy leadership is about the mastery of how we call on our energy, and in really being able to have that conscious ability to regulate energy, lead energy, and use that energy to create results. That is what I know
Mm.
the leadership of today, the leadership of tomorrow can truly benefit from. So it's
Mm.
consciousness at its core, and it's a way of doing business that throws out the traditional playbook of the past and says, in today's business world, we care about human development, self actualization, just as much as we care about the bottom line. Because
Mm.
what happens when humans are fulfilled is they can really put their energies towards things that matter beyond just the simple things of being able to provide for your family, being able to have a roof over your head. It's about being able to make the world a place better than you stepped in when you started. So that's what
Mm.
we're here in our lifetime to do. And I believe that when we step into organizations for however long we're at those organizations, making those organizations better than we started is really the microcosm of what happens in the course of people's lives. So to create fulfilling
Mm.
careers, I do believe it's beneficial to know how to lead your energy.
Yeah. So if you were to, let's say, leave the listeners with a recommendation or maybe even a how. let's talk about how. Usually we step away from the how, but how would you say a leader listening in today can lead their organization to a greater impact through stepping up in the higher level of energy?
I feel the first place to start is assessing the current climate. And
Yeah.
when you can take a benchmark of where you're at, both individually and as a group, that's almost like opening up the raw material to say, this is what we're working with, this is who we are. So to be able to have a big picture and all the data to understand what to prioritize, from there, you can create programs for growth, programs for development. The resources that you decide to allocate will be done in a way that makes sense given the current state of where your culture is. So I think
Hmm.
that assessment is a valuable place to start. And once you do that, it really does reveal what would be the next step.
Yeah, I think that is just so incredibly powerful. I was in conversation with one company where, the company has big vision and from a leadership perspective is, very directive, and this is how we're going to do it. Um, and started to see that it's very difficult to get buy-in. It's like people in the organization maybe accept what they're being told to do, but there's zero buy-in, there's zero agreements to actually do this work. So very often the organization felt that we are talking about the same thing and nothing happens. It's everybody returns to the same old, do the same old. And then through actually looking at through the lens of NG leadership, it was easy to discover that there was a high level of mistrust inside the organization. They didn't trust. And if there what I love with the NG leadership index is that you get a clear understanding of what is blocking an organization from really truly having growth, from really going all in. And this is what we need to work with. It's not another workshop on, again, if I use DEI as an example, it's not another workshop on unconscious bias. Is actually starting to have conversation and communication about, do we understand each other in general? I mean, have we built trust? Do I believe that when a person of my colleague says she or he is going to do something, that they're actually going to do it? Or am I suspicious? And that's what I also feel that this assessment is just such an incredibly powerful tool.
Definitely very revealing, and a company could be in a space of working very well together, and it's validating to also see what the data says. So I think that when it comes to blind spots like you were discussing, but also when it comes to strengths, when it comes to the raw talent that is really available within a group, when we can really bring visibility to that through doing an assessment, then we can have a measurement stick so that over time you can really see how well you're utilizing talent along with how efficiently you are being able to create the results that you want. So
Yeah.
lots of different applications. And at the end of the day, I feel like the ultimate buy-in is realizing that when we can look at serving the individual, and we can ultimately also look at serving the company, and then we can also
Mhm.
ultimately look at serving society, this tool does all three. So it is very a valuable opportunity for any leader who is looking for an innovative way of transforming the way your company operates, and in the process being able to create that external impact as well.
Yeah. So I'm sure that people are really curious. How do they get in contact with you? I'm delighted because I am working with you and my companies get access to you, but how can people get hold of you?
My company is Higher Playbook. So when you go to www.higherplaybook.com, you'll see opportunities for both organizations along with individuals. What I will say is when you and I partner together and we do culture activations and we lead culture programs, there's a lot of creativity. So wherever you are in terms of your leadership, wherever you are in terms of your business development, realize that this tool is something that we can utilize really to harness people potential. And I know that Higher Playbook is super invested in collaborating with companies that really are at the forefront of the social innovation. So I am looking forward to just seeing what becomes of this conversation. And I know with sustainability, you and I have a lot
Mm.
of synergy in really being able to raise the consciousness of corporate culture.
Yeah, thank you. So what I'm going to do is, of course, put your details in the chat. So, and yeah, connect with Julia on LinkedIn. That's the primary platform that I'm using. I want to highlight Julia there as well. Um, and from my perspective as well, what I want to say is that of all the assessment that I am working with, there are big assessments out there. What I find so powerful with this assessment is that it's supposed to change and evolve. And it is not to see like this is who I am or this is how the organization is, period. It's absolutely to see what can we do and play with so we can change and create that impact that we really want to see in this world, whether that impact is to ensure that there is a higher financial reward for people working so they can go ahead and look after their families and pay more money to social projects or whatever, or it is actually define new innovation that can be solving some of the energy crisis that we have in this world as well. It's like, what about the innovation? This assessment is also showcasing the high level of access we have to innovation within an organization and where it is. So yeah, if anyone have any questions about this, just DM me, can connect with Julia as well, and both as Higher Playbook and sustainability separately joined together. We love to have this conversation with you and to help you. Any questions you want to put in the chat, go ahead, put them in the chat, and you will see Julia on here again. We're going to talk at different angles on the energies and the power of this assessment. There are so many things we can talk about. So, with that,
Thank you so much
just
for having me today, Rita. I really enjoyed just talking to you, and you never know who you're going to meet through just being able to open up space to have conversation on LinkedIn. So if you are inspired by us, don't hesitate to say hello, and we can open conversations from there.
absolutely. So, with that, see you on the next sustainability talk. Bye for now.